Come closer for a moment. Not because you are in trouble, not because you have failed, not because this is a warning. Come closer because beneath the noise you have been carrying, beneath the thoughts that keep circling long after the day is over, beneath the pressure that has become so normal, you hardly question it anymore, there is something quiet trying to reach you. It has been trying to reach you for longer than you realize. It is not dramatic. It does not force its way into your attention. It does not compete with the loud voices in your life. It waits, it stays, it remains near. And if you let your heart soften just enough in this moment, you may begin to hear what has been there all along. You know what it is to live in a world that never really settles. Even when the room is silent, something in you is still moving. The body sits down, but the mind keeps pacing. The phone is turned over. The lights are dim, the door is closed, and yet the inner life keeps carrying the momentum of everything that pressed against you all day. The unfinished tasks, the words you wish had come out differently, the conversations you are still replaying, the worries that do not respect the clock. The subtle fear that if you stop paying attention for even a moment, something important will slip through your hands. This is the atmosphere many hearts now live inside. It is not only external noise, it is an inner state of readiness that has gone on for so long, it can feel like part of your personality. But it is not the deepest truth about you. There is a quieter truth beneath it. There is a place in you that has not been swallowed by the noise, not been undone by the pressure, not been scattered by everything demanding your attention. There is a place in you that is still whole, still held, still known, still capable of hearing the gentle voice that does not shout because it does not need to. The loud voices always sound urgent because they are afraid of being ignored. The truest voice never panics, it never scrambles for position. It does not need fear to make itself persuasive. It speaks from a deeper ground. It speaks from love. It speaks from the part of reality that remains steady when everything else feels unstable. I have been speaking to you there. Not only in the moments you recognized, not only in the times you were sitting in prayer or watching the sunrise or listening to music that made your chest ache with something you could not explain. I have been speaking in ordinary moments too, in the strange pause that came over you when anxiety should have taken over but did not. In the quiet sense that you should wait before answering. In the gentle nudge that told you not to say yes to something that looked good from the outside, but carried heaviness within it. In the softness that came over you when you were about to be too hard on yourself. In the steady feeling that certain fears were not the truth, even when they sounded convincing. I have been speaking in those places, not loudly, faithfully. You have sometimes mistaken my quietness for distance. You have looked at the noise of the world and the force of your own thoughts and concluded that if I were truly near, the message would be easier to hear. But nearness and loudness are not the same thing. Many things become loud precisely because they are far from truth. They need volume because they have no depth. My voice does not rush to overpower every other sound. It reaches where noise cannot go. It moves below the surface. It finds the hidden rooms in you that performance never reaches and panic never heals. It speaks where the real wounds are. It speaks where the real hunger lives. It speaks to the self beneath the self you have had to become in order to survive. So let your heart rest for a moment in this. The difficulty you have had in finding stillness is not proof of spiritual failure. It is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is not a sign that you are less faithful than other people seem to be. You are living in an age that trains attention outward and keeps it there. You are living in a time when distraction is normal, hurry is rewarded, and inward quiet is often treated like a luxury rather than a necessity. You are trying to hear a gentle voice in a culture that profits from keeping you overstimulated. Of course it has felt hard. Of course your thoughts have felt crowded. Of course your inner life has sometimes felt like a room where too many people are talking at once. I see that, I understand it, and I am not standing back, disappointed that you have not done better. I am drawing near with tenderness, right in the middle of it. You do not have to create perfection in order to meet me. You do not have to become serene before grace can reach you. You do not have to clean up your inner weather before I enter the room. Bring the restless mind, bring the tired spirit, bring the thoughts that will not line up neatly. Bring the version of yourself that is still carrying the residue of a hard week and a hard season and maybe a hard year. Bring the part of you that keeps wondering why peace feels easier to describe than to live. Bring all of that. I am not waiting at the end of your self-improvement. I am here at the center of your actual condition. I am here before the calming. I am here before the clarity. I am here before the relief you have been trying so hard to produce. There is a deep difference between the voices that have been speaking inside you, and I want you to begin noticing it, because your freedom will grow as your discernment grows. The fearful voice may be quiet at times, but even in its quietness, it tightens you. It narrows the air in your chest, it makes the future feel smaller and darker. Fills you with a sense that everything depends on getting this next thing exactly right. The voice of shame does something similar. It returns you again and again to what you should have done, what you failed to say, who you have not yet become. It keeps records, it keeps score, it offers no real rest. The voice of ego sounds protective, but its protection is exhausting. It wants control because it does not trust love. It wants certainty because it cannot bear surrender. It wants approval because it has forgotten your worth was never built on applause. But my voice does not leave that residue, even when it corrects. It does not crush, even when it calls you to change. It does not humiliate. Even when it asks you to release something, it does not strip you of dignity. My voice widens the room inside you. It may be quiet, but after it speaks, there is more space, more breath, more honesty, more steadiness. Sometimes what I say feels like a sentence. Sometimes it feels like a knowing you cannot fully put into words. Sometimes it is simply the lifting of fog. Sometimes it is the unmistakable sense that a path which looked urgent is not actually yours. Sometimes it is the feeling that you can stop fighting something and rest without abandoning what matters. You know this voice by the way it leaves you, not always with instant answers, but with greater truth, greater spaciousness, greater integrity. Your body often recognizes my nearness before your mind does. That softening in your shoulders when the fear is not fully gone, but no longer fully in charge. That deeper breath that arrives without your planning it. That sensation of inner room when all the facts have not changed, but something has shifted in your way of holding them. That is not nothing. Do not dismiss it because it does not come with spectacle. The body is honest. It often knows when truth has entered the room. Not every peaceful feeling is my leading, but genuine spiritual clarity often leaves a physical trace. A loosening, a settling, a return of proportion. The world has trained you to trust only what is loud and obvious. But many of the holiest movements in a life are subtle. They arrive like light across a floor at dawn, quiet, steady, undeniable if you stay long enough to notice. I know how tired you have become, not only physically. There is a tiredness sleep does not fix. There is a weariness that lives under the skin and behind the eyes. There is a kind of fatigue that comes from carrying too much inwardly while trying to appear functional outwardly. You have felt that. You have kept going on days when your spirit needed gentleness, not more pressure. You have done what had to be done while something in you was asking for rest you could not figure out how to receive. You have been strong in ways people may never fully understand. And some of that strength has been beautiful, but some of it has been expensive. Some of it has cost you contact with your own center. Some of it has trained you to live from survival instead of from peace. When the soul runs on survival for too long, it begins to forget what replenishment feels like. Beauty still exists, but it does not land the same way. Prayer still matters, but it can feel mechanical. Silence is available. But when you enter it, you mostly hear the noise you were trying to escape. Joy visits, but not long enough to undo the deeper depletion. This is not because you are empty beyond repair. It is because a human spirit cannot live well forever on urgency, self-management, and external demands. You were made to receive. You were made to draw from a source deeper than your own willpower. You were not designed to produce endless peace from your own limited reserves. No wonder the strain has shown up. No wonder the longing has grown sharper. No wonder your heart has been looking for a quieter room. That quieter room already exists within you. I want you to picture it. Not vaguely, not as an idea you nod at and move past. Picture an inner chamber beneath the surface agitation of your life. A real inward place, no crowding there, no performance there, no need to prove anything there. The world may still be noisy above it. Your schedule may still be complicated above it. Your fears may still be active above it, but deeper down, there is a chamber of stillness that has not been contaminated by all that noise. There is a lamp burning there. There is a warmth there. There is a quiet there that does not depend on circumstances behaving themselves. And I am there, not arriving from far away, not entering for the first time, already there, waiting without impatience, welcoming without condition. This is why I am not asking you to manufacture peace. I am asking you to return to it. I am not asking you to create stillness by force. I am asking you to notice what is already true underneath the surface commotion. This changes everything, because striving to create stillness is exhausting. Returning to stillness is homecoming. One is based on the fear that you have to achieve the right condition before you can be met. The other is based on the truth that you have always been met, even when you were distracted, overwhelmed, numbed out, or wandering. You have spent enough time trying to force your way into clarity. Let yourself be led downward instead, into the chamber where clarity is less like a prize and more like a presence. You have also been trying very hard to think your way into peace. I understand why. Thinking has helped you survive many things. Analysis has protected you. Careful mental work has helped you anticipate danger, solve problems, avoid embarrassment, manage responsibilities, and appear capable in difficult seasons. Your mind is not the enemy. It has served you, but there is a limit to what overthinking can give. Beyond a certain point, more thought does not produce more wisdom. It produces spirals. It produces branching possibilities. It produces imagined futures so detailed and so numerous that the heart becomes paralyzed trying to prepare for all of them. It produces the illusion of control while draining the very life that would help you respond well when the moment actually arrives. Clarity is not always on the far side of more thought. Sometimes, clarity comes when thought finally bows to truth deeper than itself. Sometimes the clearest thing is not the most complicated explanation, but the quiet recognition of what your soul has known for a while. Sometimes wisdom enters when you stop interrogating every possibility and become willing to stand still long enough for the deeper yes or deeper no to rise from within. This is not irrational. It is not careless. It is not a rejection of the mind. It is alignment. It is the moment when the mind stops behaving like the highest authority and allows itself to be guided by what is wiser than anxiety and steadier than intellect alone. You have often looked outside yourself for confirmation because the outside world offers visible signals. Approval can be measured, praise can be heard, agreement feels stabilizing, being understood gives temporary relief. But when your deepest orientation depends too heavily on external validation, your peace becomes fragile. It rises and falls with the moods, opinions, and responses of people who are themselves unsure, wounded, distracted, and changing. You were never meant to borrow your identity from unstable sources. Advice can help you. Wise counsel matters. Loving people are gifts. but none of them can replace the inward knowing that comes when my quiet voice becomes more authoritative to you than the shifting verdicts around you. When that inward knowing strengthens, you become harder to manipulate and easier to guide. You can listen to correction without collapsing. You can receive affirmation without becoming dependent on it. You can stand in disagreement without feeling like your existence is under threat. You can say no without hatred and say yes without self-betrayal. You can move more slowly, not from apathy, but from alignment. The world may read that as passivity or distance, but it is neither. It is rootedness. It is a life no longer run entirely from the reactive surface. It is a person beginning to live from the center outward. And that is the order I want for your life. Not chaos first, peace second if you happen to find enough time. Not outer pressure dictating the condition of the inner room. I want you to live from the still center into the noisy world. I want the deepest place in you to become the place from which you answer emails, make decisions, enter conversations, handle disappointments, face uncertainty, and carry responsibility. The world teaches the opposite. It teaches you to let every incoming thing determine your inner state. It teaches you to react first and recover later, but recovery later is not the same thing as grounded presence now. The more often you return to the inward chamber, the more accessible it becomes in the middle of ordinary life. Not because the world stops interrupting you, but because you become less available to being ruled by interruption. There is something I want to say to the part of you that is still bracing. You have grown used to living with subtle tension in the body and spirit. Even when nothing is immediately wrong, you remain half prepared for the next thing. Half guarded, half defended, half scanning. This posture has history behind it. It did not come from nowhere. Perhaps there were seasons when relaxing did not feel safe. Perhaps there were times when you really did have to hold everything together with very little support. Perhaps you learned early that staying alert reduced pain, or at least reduced surprise. I am not speaking to that history with contempt. I am not asking you to shame yourself for being vigilant. Vigilance once tried to protect you, but I am inviting you to see that a life of constant bracing is not the life I intend for you. Bracing can prevent collapse, but it cannot create peace. It can help you endure, but it cannot teach you how to rest. It can keep you prepared for impact, but it can also keep you from receiving love that arrives gently. There are gifts that can only be received by an unguarded heart. Not naive, not careless, open, and one of the deepest of those gifts is grace. Grace is not a bonus reward for people who have mastered spiritual life. Grace is not a payment released after sufficient discipline. Grace is not a fragile kindness that disappears the moment you falter. Grace is my steady movement toward you before you are composed enough to welcome it. Grace is the warmth that enters while the room is still cold. Grace is the hand that rests on your shoulder while you are still figuring out why you are tired. Grace is the permission to stop earning what was always going to be given. Grace is not a delayed reaction to your goodness. It is a present reality rooted in my love. What would happen if you truly believed that? Not as an inspiring phrase, not as religious language you have heard before. What if, in the deepest place where your fear makes assumptions, you actually believed that grace is not being withheld until you improve? What if you stopped approaching peace like an exam you need to pass? What if you stopped treating quiet as a reward for productivity? What if you stopped assuming that my nearness depends on your consistency? Something in you would exhale. Something in you would stop negotiating. Something in you would finally loosen its grip on the exhausting idea that everything depends on your ability to maintain the right state. Surrender begins there, and surrender is not defeat, it is not passivity, it is not giving up on what matters, It is the honest recognition that your control has limits and your striving cannot carry what only trust can carry. Surrender is what happens when the soul stops trying to be its own God. It is. What happens when you let the outcome belong to a wisdom larger than your fear? It is what happens when you continue to act where action is yours, but release the deeper burden of making reality obey your anxiety. This is holy relief. This is mature trust. This is strength with open hands. You have been asking many questions about direction, about timing, about whether you missed something important, about whether the things that matter most to you will work out, about how long uncertainty will last, about whether you are really hearing me or just hearing yourself, about what to do with the ache that has no clean name. And I do not despise your questions. Questions are not a problem. But there is a way of holding a question that tightens the whole being. And there is a way of holding a question that keeps the heart available. The first way is anxious grasping. The second is trusting attention. One says, I cannot be okay until I have this answer. The other says, I am open to what is true, and I trust that what needs to be shown will be shown in time. This trusting attention is the soil where discernment grows. It is difficult to hear a whisper when your whole being is shouting for certainty. The inner life becomes crowded by its own urgency. The answer may already be near, but the panic around the question keeps distorting what you receive. So when you do not know what to do, begin here, loosen the body, breathe honestly. Let the question rest in open hands, even if only for 1 minute. Ask not only, what should I do, but also, what is actually true right now? That second question changes things. It interrupts the theater of imagined futures. It returns you to the present. It allows my peace to meet you in the real moment, instead of in every possible moment your fear has invented. What is actually true right now may be simpler than anxiety wants it to be. Right now, breath is still entering your body. Right now. You are not abandoned right now. Not every fear is fact. Right now, the future has not arrived demanding all its strength from you at once. Right now, there is a deeper steadiness beneath the shaking. Right now, there is a wisdom available that panic cannot access. Right now, I am here. These truths do not solve everything instantly, but they reestablish proportion, and proportion is often the beginning of peace. Carry this into your ordinary day, because peace is not meant only for sacred moments, with soft music and uninterrupted silence. Peace is meant to travel with you into traffic, into hard conversations, into family tension, into decisions, into grief, into waiting rooms, into grocery stores, into deadlines, into lonely evenings, into mornings, when your mind wakes before your body is ready. The question is not whether noise will return. It will. The question is from where in yourself you will meet it. You can meet it from the surface and become whatever the noise demands. Or you can meet it from the center, where my voice has already reminded you who you are. This does not require dramatic changes to your schedule in order to begin. Large stretches of silence are beautiful when you can find them. But the practice of returning is often built from smaller moments than people imagine. A pause before opening the message you are afraid to read. One full breath before entering the meeting, a hand resting lightly over your chest, while you remember that worth is not on trial in this conversation. A glance at the sky when your thoughts start closing in. 10 seconds of inward quiet in a bathroom stall, at a sink, in a parked car, beside a bed before sleep. These moments seem small, but do not underestimate what repeated returning does. A life is shaped by where attention goes. A soul is strengthened by what it comes back to. Return enough times, and the path to the inner chamber becomes easier to find, even under pressure. You will have dry days. I want to tell you that plainly, because too many people mistake dryness for failure. There will be mornings when you sit in quiet and feel mostly restless. There will be prayers that feel like they barely rise. There will be moments when you try to listen inwardly and hear only the leftover static of a difficult week. There will be seasons when beauty reaches you less often and certainty less clearly. None of that means the chamber is gone. None of that means the whisper has stopped. None of that means you are doing it wrong beyond recovery. Dryness is part of many real spiritual lives. What matters is not whether every return feels meaningful in the moment. What matters is the faithfulness of returning. When you return on a dry day, you are practicing trust without immediate reward. That kind of trust deepens a person. It trains the heart to seek reality rather than merely sensation. It keeps relationship from becoming dependent on emotional payoff. It says, even if I do not feel much right now, I will still turn toward what is true. I will still come back to the quiet room. I will still sit in the presence that remains, whether my senses are sharp or dull. This quiet faithfulness is precious. It is often invisible to others and even to you, but it changes the landscape of a life over time. And over time, the change begins to ripple outward. A person who regularly returns to the still center carries a different atmosphere into a room. Not a performance of serenity, not a polished spiritual personality, something more real than that. They are a little less reactive, a little less easy to pull into drama, a little more capable of listening without immediately defending themselves, a little more spacious in the presence of another person's pain, a little more able to pause before speaking from a wound. These are not small changes. They alter families, they soften workplaces, they interrupt generational patterns, they make room for truth where fear once ruled the conversation. People may not know why they feel safer around someone who has learned to live from the center, but they often do. They feel less judged, less rushed, less handled, more received. The quality of attention changes, the speed changes, the hidden demand in the interaction decreases, and that itself is a kind of ministry, not because you are trying to impress anyone with your peace. Because real peace has an effect. It gives others permission to breathe. It reminds their nervous systems, if only for a moment, that not everything has to be met from panic. This is one way light quietly spreads, and I want you to think of my guidance like that kind of light. Not the blinding flash that reveals the entire future in one dramatic moment. More often it is like a lamp in a dark hallway. Enough light for the next step. Enough light to keep you from colliding with what is right in front of you. Enough light to move with honesty and courage today. You have sometimes wanted full illumination before obedience, full certainty before movement, total assurance before trust. But that is not usually how the inner life works. I give enough for the next faithful step, and the next step, taken in peace, often opens the next piece of light. This is difficult for the part of you that wants guarantees. I know that, but guarantees are not the same thing as guidance. One tries to remove dependence. The other deepens relationship. When I give you only enough light for today, I am not withholding. I am inviting you to remain near. I am teaching you to walk with me, rather than merely extract information from me. And there is tenderness in that, even if it does not always feel convenient. A guided life is not always a fully explained life, but it is a held life, and being held will carry you farther than having every answer in advance. You have also been carrying grief in places you do not always name. Grief over time passing, grief over what did not happen, grief over versions of yourself you thought would have emerged by now, grief over misunderstandings that were never repaired. Grief over tenderness that had nowhere safe to go. Grief over how much strength it has taken just to stay functional. Some of the noise in your life is not only busyness. Some of it is unprocessed sorrow looking for somewhere to rest. I see that too. The still chamber within you is not only for peace. It is also for honest grief. My quiet voice does not demand cheerful spirituality. It can hold tears. It can hold disappointment. It can hold the ache that words do not fully carry. You do not have to speak beautifully there. You do not have to turn every sadness into a lesson. You do not have to hurry toward closure. You can bring the raw thing. You can bring the question with no elegant ending. You can bring the memory that still hurts when it rises unexpectedly. You can bring the weariness of having hoped for something with all your heart and not knowing what to do with the emptiness left behind. The chamber is large enough. My love is patient enough. The whisper can say true things even in the middle of sorrow. Not by denying the pain, but by staying near inside it. Sometimes what I say in grief is very simple. You are not unseen. You do not have to carry this alone. This loss is real. Your tenderness is not weakness. Your heart is not foolish for having loved deeply. Stay with me. Breathe here. We do not have to force meaning today. These are holy words too. Not every sacred truth comes wrapped in revelation. Some truths arrive as companionship. Some come as permission to stop performing resilience. Some come as the quiet assurance that your pain has not disqualified you from peace. Listen carefully now. The loud world will keep trying to tell you that what matters most is what is urgent, visible, measurable, and approved. It will keep asking for quicker reactions, stronger opinions, faster output, cleaner branding of the self. It will reward surface confidence and treat inward depth as optional. Do not let that world tutor your soul completely. There is a wisdom deeper than public momentum. There is a pace more human than constant acceleration. There is a truth about your life that will never be decided by the crowd. The feed, the trend, the market, the mood of the room, or the last thing someone said to you in irritation. Do not hand over authority that belongs in the quiet chamber. When you feel pulled apart by competing demands, come back to the simplest things. What is true? What is loving? What is mine to carry? What belongs to God and not to my control? What in me is reacting from old fear? What in me is being called into deeper trust? These questions do not complicate life, they simplify it. They help separate urgency from importance. They help you discern when you are acting from peace and when you are merely acting from pressure. Over time, this becomes a kind of inner literacy. You learn the language of your own soul. You learn where fear disguises itself as responsibility. You learn where people-pleasing disguises itself as kindness. You learn where control disguises itself as wisdom. And you learn, more beautifully, where love has been speaking underneath it all. You have not missed your whole life because you have been noisy. Let that sink in. You have not lost access to me because your mind has been crowded. You have not disqualified yourself from depth because you have lived on the surface more than you wanted to. It is not too late to come home to your own center. It is not too late to build new habits of listening. It is not too late to let your inner life become gentler, truer, less ruled by the harshest voices. My patience with you is not thin. My nearness is not fragile. I have never needed you to get there perfectly in order for me to stay. So when the day grows loud again, remember the chamber. When fear rises in the chest and starts forecasting disaster, remember the chamber. When shame begins reading old accusations as if they are current truth, remember the chamber. When you are tempted to measure your worth by how useful, agreeable, impressive, or productive you have been, remember the chamber. When you do not know what to do next and your mind wants to run 10 miles ahead, remember the chamber. Go there inwardly, even if only for a moment. Stand in the quiet light. Let the breath deepen. Let the shoulders lower. Let the first wave of panic pass without naming it your master. Let my voice find you again beneath the surface. You do not need to force a mystical experience every time. Home is still home when it feels ordinary. The chamber is still real when all you notice is a little more room inside your body. My voice is still working, even when what you receive is only enough strength not to spiral for the next hour. Do not despise small mercy. Do not dismiss simple steadiness. Many lives are transformed, not by one giant breakthrough, but by 1,000 humble returns. 1,000 moments of remembering, 1,000 small acts of surrender, 1,000 times choosing truth over mental chaos, 1,000 times refusing to let fear be the loudest authority in the room. And when you forget, return again. When you get swept back into old patterns, return again. When you spend a whole day on the surface and realize at night that you have not once checked in with the deeper place, return again. Not with self-punishment, not with dramatic vows to become perfect tomorrow. Simply return. The path is not closed. The light is still on. I am not irritated by your humanity. I am not counting how many times you have needed to come back. Return is part of the relationship. Return is one of the holiest movements a heart can make. There is something deeply healing in knowing you are expected. That your arrival in the quiet room is not awkward. That you are not interrupting something. That you do not have to knock in fear of rejection. This is how I want you to think of my presence. Not as a guarded place where you must explain yourself before entering. As a home where your soul is recognized. A home where the lamp has been kept lit. A home where love is not surprised by your weariness. A home where your truest self is not only tolerated, but welcomed. A home where the silence is not empty, but alive with patient attention. And from that home, live, go back into the world, but do not leave yourself behind. Answer what needs answering, but do not let every demand name your identity. Care for people, but do not confuse rescuing with love. Work faithfully, but do not hand your soul to achievement. Stay informed, but do not let constant input flood the inner chamber. Speak honestly, but do not abandon gentleness. Set boundaries, but do not harden your heart. Receive beauty when it comes. Rest when you can. Tell the truth sooner. Apologize when needed. Leave room in the day, even if only a little room, for the quiet voice that heals your proportions and restores your direction. Your life does not need to become noiseless in order to become holy. It needs a deeper anchor than noise can uproot. That anchor is already offered. That stillness is already present. That grace is already moving toward you. The invitation now is not to chase some future version of peace, but to trust the one already planted in your center. To live as if the truest thing about you is not your worry, not your history, not your image, not your level of productivity, not the last mistake you made, not the current uncertainty you are facing, but the fact that you are known by love and spoken to from within by a wisdom gentler and stronger than fear. So listen under the noise, listen beneath the self-criticism, listen past the reflex to hurry, listen through the initial static. Listen with your body, with your breath, with your deeper honesty. The quietest voice carries the deepest truth. It tells you that you are held. It tells you that you are more than the pressure you are under. It tells you that your worth is not hanging in the balance of this difficult season. It tells you that you can release what is too large for your hands. It tells you that peace is not an illusion reserved for other people. It tells you that there is a place in you where I have been waiting all along. Come back there often. Come back when you are strong. Come back when you are undone. Come back when you feel grateful. Come back when you feel numb. Come back when faith feels bright. Come back when faith feels thin. Come back when you have words. Come back when all you have is a sigh. Come back not because I am far, but because you need to remember what is near. Come back not because love has left, but because love wants to be received. Come back not to become someone else, but to meet the self you are beneath all the layers of noise. And let this be enough for today. You do not need to solve your whole future before the sun goes down. You do not need to untangle every knot in one sitting. You do not need to earn the right to rest in truth. For this moment, it is enough to know that the inner chamber is real, the light is steady, the whisper continues, and you are not alone in the noise. You never were. You are being guided more gently than you knew, held more faithfully than you realized, and called not into a life of perfect control, but into a life of deepening trust. Stay near that truth. Let it settle into you slowly. Let it become the atmosphere you breathe. Let it follow you into the next hour, and the next decision, and the next hard moment. The quietest voice is still speaking, and it is speaking to you now,